today's guest is Jordan Mazur. Jordan's a registered dietitian who works with high-performing athletes. He started out working with the Philadelphia Eagles, and currently he's the Director of Performance and Nutrition for the San Francisco 49ers. He is an incredible wealth of knowledge. He's a student of nutrition, but then also how do we translate nutrition into actionable strategies, right? Which, if you know me, that's right up my alley. So happy to have Jordan on the show. I know we're going to have a great conversation. Let's bring him on. All right. Hey, Jordan, thanks so much for joining us. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Mike. It's always great to chat with you.
Yeah, this is awesome. So we had one of your divisional and regional counterparts on the show before, so I'm sure Joey Blake. I expect much better things from you than we got from Joey. So
Yeah.
we also with our pistachio shelling challenge, I feel like this is going to be the best of not just if you can beat me, but if you could beat Joey's score of 15, which was pretty good.
I feel like there's a whole nother level added just because not only are we in the NFL, like dietitian to dietitian, but we're divisional rivals as well. So,
Exactly.
um, Joey didn't know. Maybe Joe didn't know I was going to be on here later, but I know now, Joey, how many he did. So I've got ultra or extra motivation.
You got the advantage. We'll see if we can bump the views on yours too, because that'll be a nice bragging rights piece.
Um,
Rod. So I wanted to just kind of jump in, talking about, I know you've had a lot of experience, your work with professional athletes, and we'll get into a little bit about kind of the similarities between, professional athletes and more kind of everyday exercise, recreational activity folks. But one of the things that I'm interested in, because there's so many facets of nutrition and performance, that when you look at the work that you do with athletes, what do you feel like you do really well to help enhance performance?
Yeah, I think nutrition is advanced so much. I think there's always new technologies and coming out. So I think I always try to stay on top of like the latest and greatest. So I take pride in, using the latest technologies. How can we really look at the athlete from the inside out when it comes to nutrition? So looking at body composition, using DEXA technology, right? So we can have the most accurate method, but more importantly, like where they're holding lean body mass or body fat instead of just looking at the number on the scale, like what is really optimal for that specific athlete and their body type and their position. Looking at the blood and analyzing that and making sure that they're, up to date and sufficient in a lot of these vitamins and minerals and things that they have higher demands for. But sometimes they might be insufficient in something and not know otherwise, because there's no side effects, right? But we want to get those in those optimal ranges because, again, they have such high energy demands. They're putting their bodies through so much stress, but can we optimize that and help them recover and get back, on practice and stay in peak shape all season long? Correcting, I think the gut microbiome, I think we've talked about it before, is just fascinating. Continuing to, continuous advancements in that and research in that world and its effect not on just the general population or person, but elite athletes as well. So I think that we do a really good job at that. I have a great assistant, Taylor, who helps me out too, and have a great kitchen staff. So kind of this whole, our nutrition department, I think is the best in the league. Not biased at all, but
No,
for sure, I think we do a lot to support
really.
our players, and not just nutrition. Nutrition is the foundation, but all aspects of athlete healthcare and performance.
Yeah. So when you are talking about the gut microbiome, and I know last time when we saw each other at the American Pistachio Grower Conference during the Q&A session, this came up a bunch. And I think in the talk, one of the talks that I gave, we were talking about there's, our sponsors, the American Pistachio Growers, will love this, but there's some research looking at pistachios, and the fiber in pistachios actually promotes the growth of beneficial bacteria in the gut. When One of the things that I think is hard to grasp about the gut microbiome is like all the factors that can impact the population of bacteria in your gut and what we don't know about it. What are some of the things, kind of the hard and fast guidelines that you have about optimizing gut bacteria, or how you like to talk to people about it so they can make sense of it?
Yeah, and I think you hit it on the head there. Like the microbiome is this like black hole of, of science in the human body that we really don't know everything about, and we're discovering more and more. But with new advances in technology, we can DNA sequence everyone's gut microbiome, and it's so unique and different to everyone. And there's so many factors, right? There's it's constantly changing. There's living bacteria. There's more bacteria in your gut than cells in your body. So we're learning more and more about what these specific bacteria can do to help or hurt you, really, right? There's probiotics, but there's also negative,
Mm-hmm.
bad, harmful bacteria that we interact with on a daily basis. But for athletes specifically, they're putting their bodies through a lot of stress, and so stress, environmental factors, use of medication can really disrupt that gut microbiome and balance of it. So we have technologies now where we can measure it, and help to prescribe precision probiotics, right? Exactly what you need or that athlete might need that might be out of balance or out of whack. Allows the overgrowth of a bad harmful bacteria, and can we help regulate that and diverse it. And then there's the prebiotic factor, right, where pistachios fit in, and these bacteria are living with, and they require food and oxygen to live. So can we also provide those to help, help with the growth of these certain probiotics and beneficial bacteria? I just think it's fascinating, and every time I dive into it a little bit more, I'm always learning something more and more. Learning more about the gut integrity too, right? The intestinal lining, and,
Mm-hmm.
and idea of a leaky gut, and can we help strengthen that too in certain athletes, and even non-athletes, right? And autoimmune disorders and things that we can actually dive into. So I'm sure we could have a whole talk about the microbiome and everything, but I think it's a huge, a vast, area of research and opportunity in the near future for healthcare, and for athletes and non-athletes.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I feel like it is one of those next frontiers on how do we harness human potential, health, performance. To think that the bacteria in your digestive system, which is not part of your body, can impact your immune function and like kind of optimize or downregulate your immune function is bananas, right? I mean, it's like so wild, and so that we have this power in there that we haven't really even started to harness.
Or
Um,
even the gut brain connection, right? The gut
yeah.
brain connection that we're discovering more, and bacteria that can, harmful or beneficial bacteria that might be able to get to your brain and help you, with cognition and brain fog. But also, are we taking care of our gut, that we're preventing, from an immune perspective, right? Preventing ourselves and protecting ourselves against those harmful bacteria that can cause illness, or even in autoimmune conditions. Can we help with that, through probiotics and discovering these different types of bacteria? So yeah, it's certainly fascinating.
So when you think about the gut bacteria, and I know you were talking about measuring it and then optimizing it, are you looking for because I know that your approach to nutrition is a primary a food first approach. With the gut bacteria, do you have this still of a food first approach, or do you think you need to go at it from a supplementation standpoint, or is it some sort of mix? Like, what do you like to do?
Yeah, I think it's a balance. It's a mix between two, right? Because you have those bacteria themselves. We can isolate them and know if we're testing, we can figure out what your microbiome looks like and how diverse or undiverse it is. Sometimes we have to. That's where a supplementation might make sense, right? We can
Mm-hmm.
prescribe find specific bacteria, right? You go to Target or CVS. There's a whole aisle of probiotics now, right? And
Yeah.
sometimes you might not even need the ones that are off the shelf. So precision and gut testing can be the optimal way to do that. But then there are certain probiotic type foods as well as prebiotic fiber type foods, like pistachios, right? And fibrous foods, raw fruits and vegetables. Then some fermented foods like kombucha and sauerkraut that do have these like probiotic and prebiotic type fuels to help support the growth of it. And it's a constant balance too. So always looking at the whole picture too. If someone has a flare up or someone has a GI disorder, what else is going on? What's your diet like? Did you eat some bad food? Uh,
Mm-hmm.
Stressful event that happened in your life, right? You just have a child and you're not getting a lot of sleep. So there's so many factors that affect it. But definitely it's a combination, right? The food fuels the bacteria as well as in the gut, and helps regulate digestion and, bloating and some of these other things that can really, affect not just performance, but just your everyday life and mood. So it has to be a combination of both. And food first is always the approach, but I do believe that supplementation, when done smartly, it can be effective as well.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, no, I agree. I think sometimes you got to pull in the big guns, or like you said, precision supplementation. The best supplementation in my mind is when you need to get very specific, or it's you need something in a concentration you're just not going to be able to get in regular food, and that the kind of supplementation allows you to dial that in a little bit more.
Right. It has to be. You have to do. There's so much technology now. We can actually measure it. So instead of blindly supplementing,
Yeah.
we exactly if you're insufficient or deficient in something, and then specifically, supplement with that vitamin or mineral or probiotic or what bacteria or whatever it might be. So you're not just blindly supplementing, and then we can remeasure to make sure that you're in optimal zone, so you don't end up over supplementing too, which is also a concern I see a lot too, especially with B vitamins and things that people are just loading up on now.
Mm,
Um,
yeah.
things that we have to be over time. There's some negative side effects to overdosing on vitamin C and B. Those are the ones I see most common, that are often found in every single energy drink and immune, especially so topical now with the last couple of years, right? Immune boosting supplements and things like that.
Hmm.
But we just got to be a little bit smarter about it. And we have the technology and ways to do that now.
Yep. No, yeah, definitely agree. So I know you're a very, in addition to kind of being the head of nutrition with the 49ers, you're also a very accomplished writer and journalist. So you have this great balance of being, working with high level athletes, but then also having the context to help and support more recreational, athletics and people looking to get in shape, stay in shape, etc. What are some of the parallels that you think? Because I think people always want to know, well, they want to know what the pros do, and they're like, well, should I do that too? Or what are these high level athletes doing, and is that relevant to me? What are some of the things that you're encouraging and work with high level athletes to do that's also directly relevant to just kind of the average person who's looking to get healthy, stay in shape, etc.?
Yeah, great question. And I think really, when it comes down to it, I think everyone, right, food is very simple, right? It's carbs, fats, and proteins that provide calories to the body, which ultimately is the ATP, which is the energy form. Like that's it, right?
Yep.
Yeah, but mineral needs, right? But those don't give us energy. But in order to run, right, we need calories in the form of food, food in the form of calories, energy, carbs, fats, and protein, and then water, right, to live. So whether you're an elite athlete or you're a recreational athlete or just a sedentary normal person, it's just different combinations of that, right? So athletes need carbs, fats, and proteins too. It's just different amounts of that. They're putting their bodies through a lot more stress and exercise than the normal individual. But again, it's just different combinations and amounts of those carbs, fats, and proteins. So it's just as simple as that. And when you break it down, it seems simple, but in the end, there's so many more factors, as we know, that make it a little bit more complicated to figure out what's the right amount of those. So when it comes to athletes, it's just a lot more of those and different combinations and different timings of those macronutrients. And same thing with the micronutrients, vitamins and minerals too. They sometimes have an elevated need or go through a lot of those, especially like electrolytes and things like that, more than the normal person. But yeah, so it's simplified in that sense.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's also this idea that people are becoming more and more aware of what they're putting in their body. Right, athletes are very in tune with their bodies because it's their livelihood, it's their career, especially at the professional level. It's a little bit more easy because they understand the importance of it.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and so I think in general too, I think as a society, right, we're becoming a little bit more and more aware of what we're putting in our body and the effect that it has on our body. And even the environment and the environmental impact of that too. So I think athletes and non-athletes alike are similar in that sense. And then in general, I think that when you look overall at the diet, there's a lot of deficiencies and insufficiencies that we see across the board when it comes to vitamins and minerals that are common among athletes, just like non-athletes, right? Omega 3s, just omega 3s and omega 6 ratio, right? Due to the Western diet and due to the processed foods that are common now. Vitamin D, vitamin E, I see a lot. Zinc, magnesium. These are common things that athletes don't get enough of. But I think in
Mm-hmm.
general, the general population doesn't get enough of either. I think that's
Yeah.
due to partly of a lack of access to some of these foods, or just a lack of nutrient dense foods that we're all consuming. So, there's a lot of similarities that you can pull. And I think that's like what you mentioned has allowed me to kind of, study at the very high end with the most elite athletes, but a lot of that still we can translate a lot of that stuff and adapt it to, everyday individuals, because at the end of the day, a lot of the science is still the same.
Yeah. No, so I think it's really interesting that you kind of started out answering that question saying like, look, there's these basic components of, the macronutrients and calories that high level athletes need and everyday people need as well. And this kind of mastery of the basics, as I've been doing the Friday Fuel Up show, that has been such a theme from all these high class, world class individuals and world class performers and coaches, is this mastery of the basics. And everybody wants to get so advanced and crazy when they think like, how do I get better, or how do I mimic these high performers? But in reality, it's just they're really good at doing the basics, and then they scale it to their level. And one of the things I had wrote this book called The Metashred Diet, and it was a rapid kind of weight loss diet. It was like a 1 month weight loss diet book for men's health. But one of the things I always told people was that all it is really is an intensification of core nutrition principles. Like if you wanted to get these results faster, like it's just more rigorous compliance and a little bit more intensive application of these things, but the principles remain the same. It's calorie deficit, it's optimal amount of protein, it's getting ample vitamins and minerals, kind of all those things, but just put at a greater intensity. So I think that's really interesting that kind of that's what you're saying too, that you see is the difference between, or the parallel with high level athletes and everyday recreational people, is they have the same needs, but kind of the intensity and the scale is different based on the activity and the performance that they need to have.
Yeah, it's like the concept of walk before you run, right? I think a lot of people really just don't, they lack an education with nutrition, right? Because
Yeah.
no fault of their own, right? We just don't
No.
have a system in place in America where kids are learning. You don't learn this in school unless you go to, college and advanced degrees like you and I. We know this stuff. So to us, it seems basic, but I always have to take a step back and understand, all right, do you guys understand what a carb, a fat, a protein is? And you'd be surprised. There's a lot of athletes, even at at this level, that don't even know what those are, let alone what foods, what are carbohydrates.
Yeah.
And they're performing at such high levels, right? They're blessed genetically to be able to not have to really know that stuff and still get to the NFL. But now it's about optimizing, right? Now we fine tune that, master the basics, and then start to fine tune to optimize recovery, optimize performance, and all of that stuff. So yeah, I think it does really start with those basics first, and understanding what is nutrition, what is food, what are calories, what is carbs, fats, and proteins, and what and why. How does the body use them?
So I want to get a little bit into some of the stuff that you do, with the 49ers, and we're just wondering kind of, one, if you could talk to everybody like about how long you've been there, and then what's your favorite part of the job?
Yeah, so I'm entering my sixth season now. Time really does fly. Before that, I was at UC Berkeley, and before that, I did a quick stint with the Philadelphia Eagles. So, all in all, this is probably my seventh season in the NFL, working with athletes, and
Mm-hmm.
I've enjoyed every minute of it. The cliche holds true, right? If you love what you do, you don't feel like you've worked a day, and
Yep.
I hate saying that, but it's really true. And every year I've been able to build a program to help support our athletes more and more. And I love the team atmosphere, right? I love being a part of a team because we have a really great culture with the 49ers, and that bleeds through all the departments, right? Not just the players in the locker room, but the coaching staff and the support staff and the performance and everything. So I love being a part of that. I love being part of the team on game day, in the locker room, but ultimately supporting the athletes, right, at the highest level. These are the best athletes in the world.
Mm-hmm.
And ultimately, my goal was to work in the NFL. When I was going through college, that's really what I wanted to do, because I wanted to work with some of the best athletes in the world. And how can we? I started with just the idea and that I understanding food is fuel, and how does it affect the body, and how do we actually take that food that we eat and digest it, and how can it hurt or help performance. And I think being able to apply that is something that I'm always learning. But I think that's the best part of the job, right?
Yeah.
As you probably know too, right? Translating the evidence base of research and then applying that, which is the skill, right? That's a true skill in learning learning the carbs, fats, and proteins. But how do we apply that in a real world setting when there's so many more factors? Food availability, taste preference, where did they grow up, what's their education like. You can draw a perfect meal plan, but if they hate broccoli, right, why would you put
Yeah.
broccoli? You can eat broccoli. So that's the fun part too. It's always changing and evolving. And just being able to work with the guys individually, being around the team setting, the NFL is just so fun too. It's a pleasure to be able to, and a blessing to work there. Just the course of the season and getting into the playoffs, and we've been lucky to go to a Super Bowl and an NFC Championship game last year. So that's a ton of fun, and being able to apply it at the highest level is I still enjoy going to work and doing what I do every single day.
Yeah, no. So do you have, I noticed sometimes on social you'll share some little clips from your work and with the team. And I think one of the things, and I'm not sure if it's just the California sun that also makes this look so good, but it feels like you guys have one of the best smoothie stations on the planet. You know, the one that like it's like
Yeah.
outside and everything, like the colors are so vibrant, and you have like the wood kind of obstacle course there in the background. Yeah, like it just seems like such a good setup. Do you find it tricky to find, because I think smoothies are great because you could like hide stuff in them, you know, like different
Mhm.
nutritious foods that you might not be able to get people to eat. Do you have a hard time finding particular flavor combinations that people like, or do you feel like you got that licked pretty good?
No, I think I feel like I find like it's always evolving, like I said, but I found a pretty good fix now. Smoothies are always a fun way to get extra calories in. We don't rely on them, but a lot of times these guys have 5,000 to 6,000 calories that they need to get in, and the volume of food, especially when it comes to like clean, nutrient dense food, the
Yeah.
volume becomes a challenge too. And a lot of times they have to not just train their muscles in the gym, but train their stomachs to be
Yeah.
able to tolerate it too. And so we've been a little bit creative. I have a proprietary blend of it's like a, 'cause sometimes the volume is a hard thing. So we have a protein shot. I have a bunch of different flavors that we do after workout. So it's a 6 ounce shot.
Mhm.
Sorry, 9 ounce shot. So it's in one of those 9 ounce shooters. And it's got 35 grams of protein, 35 grams of protein, and 200 calories. So it's like a quick shot of recovery before.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'll shower, sometimes I'll go to meetings before they actually eat, or depending on when practice is. And we'll do chocolate peanut butter is like the OG, right? That's like what everyone likes. Chocolate
Yeah.
peanut butter is a classic. We'll have a pina colada flavor. We have an apple pie flavor. We have a strawberry shortcake flavor, an orange cream. So like we're always changing it up because sometimes nutrition can get monotonous, right? Some of these
Oh, yeah.
guys are really on, and so sometimes you have to change it up. And our kitchen staff does a great job at mixing it up and getting creative with the food and what we serve in our cafeteria for the players, because they're eating their breakfast, lunch, dinner, snacks, especially during training camp on like every single day.
Yeah.
And so it's a challenge to get it to be creative, right? Get creative to make sometimes, but there's only so many ways you can make cook broccoli and vegetables
Yeah.
and steak and chicken and fish. So they do a great job at keeping it fresh, and changing things up. And so we always try to do that so it doesn't get monotonous and food doesn't get boring, because it doesn't have to be.
Yeah. So something that you said I think is super interesting in that you were saying because your athletes need to get in so many calories, right? The healthy foods have so much volume, right? And their the energy density, kind of the calories per bite is so low, it's hard for them to do that, which is like literally the opposite of, we were talking about this prior, that with people who maybe aren't moving as much, aren't burning as many calories, like energy density becomes such a priority in the other direction. Like you need the low energy dense foods, you need more of the fruits and vegetables to fill you up on less calories. So again, it's like that same core principle, but just flipped around in reverse. And I think it is an interesting challenge. Like, how do you get these guys who need to consume a lot of food to do it in a quality food way and not go the easy route where you could, you could have a burrito from a fast food place and it's 1,500 calories, no problem.
Yeah, and I think you do have to get creative, and that's kind of like, and even within the team, like we have so many guys that some do need 5 or 6,000 calories because they're on weight gain plans. Some of them have just really high metabolism and they're hard gainers, and they have to consume that. And then maybe they run a ton of practice or receiver or DB. They're very
Yeah.
lean. Their frame, their body type is like that. But then we also have some big dudes, that are 300 plus pounds that have to weight manage that to stay within that range too. And so with them, it's about getting the most, it's being more targeted, right? With
Hmm.
the specific strategies of what and when they're consuming certain calories, specifically carbohydrates, right? So their performance isn't going to suffer, but they also can help to optimize their body composition too, right? So
Yeah.
even though they might be 100 pounds, their body fats might be less than 20%. And so they still have a ton of lean body mass that they also have to account for.
Yeah.
So we try to do, like I said, take a food first approach, but again, that volume of food is hard. And we get creative by putting like olive oil and shakes, because it's an easy way. Like you can get extra tasting olive oil, which has like 120 calories in into a tablespoon. Polyunsaturated fat's really good for you. You mix it up. Some guys like look at me like I'm crazy when I start doing it, but it's a really easy way to add a ton of calories without a ton of volume,
Yeah.
or sugar, and get those healthy fats in there that is often a lacking part of the diet. Those healthy fats, nuts, seeds, avocados, olive oils, things like that. So we'll put those in shakes. We'll boost it. An easy way to, again, is just put healthy avocado oil or olive oil through in the vegetables, right? So just steam
Hmm.
vegetables, and you just get some calories in there. So avocados are nutrient dense foods, so, and calorically dense. So we get a little bit creative. Nuts and seeds, pistachios, right? Nutrient dense foods, things that have like healthy calories that we can add in snacks and in between too, can go a long way.
Yeah. Yeah. No, totally agree. Definitely. So I have one more question, and then we'll get into the pistachio shelling challenge, which, as I mentioned before, has some, divisional repercussions as well, for you.
More than you know. There's a lot more at stake than you.
Yes. Um, so, the last question is, what's something that you feel like you're constantly emphasizing to the athletes that you wish they would do more of? You're kind of like, I feel like I'm always saying this, but it's hard for people to grasp, but it's really important.
Yeah, eat more vegetables. Like that is probably the most common. And I
Yes.
think, again, going back to our first question, right? That's like what non-athletes can relate to the most too, is like get your vegetables in. There's a ton of benefit to it. Like, it's hard to, sometimes it's like pulling teeth. But that's the number one thing. Eating consistently, right? I have a lot of guys that just don't eat enough too, especially with the amount of calories they need. Like I said, it is hard. So sometimes they're just not hungry. A lot of times people and athletes too have a hard time. They don't have an appetite in the morning. So eating breakfast is so important, especially with our schedule. Is we get going early. They need those calories in. If you skip to lunch, you're already missing out on a huge window of opportunity to get calories in. So eating your vegetables, consistently eating, getting enough calories in, drinking plenty of fluids, right? They have a higher demand for fluids. They're sweating out a lot. They're losing fluids more than the normal individual. And I think in general, I think people don't drink enough, right? I think they often forget about it, or water and beverages, or, drinking is boring
Yeah.
sometimes. So that's a challenge. And, the last thing I would say is, more recently, is just stop listening to social media, right? Like come to us for the facts and the nutrition advice. Cause the trends are always there. Vegan, depending on what's the trends or what documentary something came out. I think the last time we spoke, it was Game Changers, right? Vegan athletes, and that was
Yeah.
like a big trend and
Yeah.
and thing that people were talking about. Now it's the Liver King and organ meats and the Carnivore MD. I'm
Yes.
not sure
Yeah.
if you've been seeing all of that
Oh
stuff
yeah.
recently.
Yep.
So that's up that I get a lot of questions, and I do encourage it, right? I encourage them to ask me those questions and how I feel about it, and what is the science, like what do I think about that, and what do I take from that, and I think that the common denominator is, right, there's more of an agenda when it comes to some of that stuff. I think you could also say that there are bits and pieces of each one of these fad diets, right? That are actually probably good, right? It's not all
Hmm.
crazy. Sometimes they take
Yeah.
an aspect to run with it, right? I think high quality proteins and meat are beneficial, right? High quality protein is really good to consume.
Yep.
Is that all you should be consuming? Probably not,
Yep.
right? And,
Oh yeah.
uh, organ organ meats, I think I personally need to dive a little bit more into. Like, I'm not going to eat a lot of liver and kidneys, but maybe I got to dive into the science behind it, and maybe more than I do about the benefits, and there might be, but is that practical? Like, that's not practical. So yeah, I think those are some of the main things that I'm always constantly, and it's not even like a burden. It's like I love it. I encourage some of those things to kind of help athletes get better.
Yeah. Yeah, no. So I used to write for about 4 years. I wrote a weekly column for Shape magazine, and the thing that I liked the most about that was the questions were just so wacky, and so it kind of forced me to dive into like that. What is that trend? Why are people asking that question? And there's always like a seed of biochemical truth, right? Like
Yeah,
somewhere in there, but then it's usually kind of blown out of proportion. Or I think the last point that you just made is so good. Is it practical? Like, you don't need to have an impractical diet. Like, you can have a diet that's practical for your life and be really effective. And I feel like at some level people think it needs to be a burden and they need to suffer, but that is definitely not the case. um the other
yeah,
thing that you said that I think is really good, and I do more work now than I had previously with athletes of the high school age, partly because of the age that my kids are getting into. And breakfast is so important. You're saying these athletes, they get up, they don't have an appetite, so maybe they skip breakfast. Like, if you're a high school athlete and you miss breakfast, like, you are in trouble, because chances are you're eating lunch at school. School gets out, you're going to go right to practice, and then you basically have dinner. And calorically, you're just so far behind the eight ball if you skip breakfast that it's really hard to meet those calorie needs, especially of a growing boy or girl. Like, in addition to their high calorie output or energy output, they're also growing. And so, like, getting breakfast, getting enough calories early in the day, I think is such an important thing that people underestimate.
yeah. I was listening to this podcast, and they put it really well. They said, like, most people have an opinion on nutrition because everyone eats, right? Everyone's familiar with food, and most people think that they know food just because they eat food, because we all eat.
Yeah.
But it's not like you would go to you would go to a party and just ask someone for legal advice, or ask someone off the street to come fix your faucet. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
those are like, you would go to a lawyer for legal advice. You would go to a plumber to fix your toilet. You would go to an electrician. So maybe you should go to a nutrition professional, someone that knows that studied it, to get their advice. So I think that's really important to know. But it is hard because we all eat food, we enjoy food, we all think we know something about it, but it's way more advanced. There's so much more to it than just eating.
Yeah. No, that is dead on. I have that exact same belief. Uh, so I want to get into the pistachio shelling challenge, as I was saying. So for people tuning in for the first time, the rules are very
Yeah.
simple. 30, yeah, exactly. Yeah, warm it up. You need a foam roll or something, get a Theragun out. I understand. The rules are simple. We got a timer that's going to pop on the screen for 30 seconds. Jordan and I are going to shell as many pistachios as we can in 30 seconds. Whoever shells the most pistachios wins. As a point of reference, Joey Blake of the LA Rams last episode shelled 15 pistachios in 30 seconds. I will also let you in on a little secret, Jordan. Scott Kelly was on the episode before. Scott holds the record. He shelled 18 pistachios, which is an all-time high. And his strategy was to dump all of them out. I'm giving you the secrets ahead of time, right? I didn't give this to Joey. You dump all of them out on your table, so then you can see which ones are close to open, and then you shell those.
That is an insider tip. Also, people that are
I just
watching this and know
I
me
just
know I'm
dump
like,
mine.
I'm super competitive. So, like, I could take the simplest task, and I could be like, it could be like I need to win the gold medal. Like, it could be
Good.
just like, walking, who gets to the door faster, like who gets to the car faster. Like, it's something inside me. So
Well, this is good because I was actually just saying to my wife before the show, I'm like, I feel like I've lost the last four. Like I tied Josh Allen, lost to Scott Kelly, lost to Joey Blake. Like I know that you really want to win this, so you could beat Joey too. But I'm gunning to not lose here. So
You should take tying Josh Allen as like a win for you though,
oh,
right?
that was a big win. That got me so much street cred. Like where I live up in upstate New York, like that was serious. I think
Yeah.
people actually would have been upset if I would have beat him. They would have been mad at me for like putting him through that emotional angst.
All right, let's get into it.
All right, ready? Timer's gonna go on. Set, go. Like I'm not even gonna talk as much as I usually do here because we gotta get focused. Halfway. Five seconds. 4, 2. Time's up. Time's up. Time's up. All right.
Wait, what did Scott Kelly get?
18.
What's the record?
18.
What did
Well,
you get?
I got 19.
This is crazy because like you can't really like mine's
Oh
not
my! I don't
allowing
even
me.
want to know how many you got. You're like showing me. Like
This
how
is
many?
20. I got 20. You can count them. I
20.
got 20. Is
What?
that the record? Count them. There's 20 in
No,
there.
I
Yeah.
believe you. I'm not. I'm gonna recount mine just to make sure because 19's pretty close. If I lose to you and I got 19, I'm gonna be so 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18,
20.
19. Oh my, Jordan, you gotta be kidding me. Oh,
So
I mean,
I
that's
I was
like,
I was gonna ask if there was a prize, but it doesn't even matter because I beat Joey Blake and I beat everyone.
um, oh, so Jordan, thank you so much. This was awesome. You gave me like extra time. I appreciate you being so generous with your time and your knowledge. This was really great, minus you shelling 20 pistachios in 30 seconds. But I thank everybody for tuning in, and we will be back. Remember, first Friday of every month, so tune in next month for the show. First Friday, 1 p.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific. We will see you then.